Hi, welcome to the first edition of Producer to Producer, sponsored by the APC, the Association de Producteurs de Cinéma. We're in the beautiful city of Paris, the city of lights. My name is Bojana Momirovic and I'll be your host today. I'm very happy to announce our guests, Mr. Tony Scott and Mr. Georges Bermann. Mr. Bermann is a French producer who founded the company Partizan in 1991. They've produced commercials, music videos, animation, feature films. Tony Scott, the famous producer and director who runs the company Scott Free with his brother Ridley. Tony has the honor of having two films come out in France at the same time. One, a huge blockbuster production called Unstoppable, and the other, very much on the opposite, a small independent production called Welcome to the Rileys. So please welcome our guests, Mr. Tony Scott and Mr. Georges Bermann.
So,
ready? So
I'm ready.
The first topic is to try to figure out the differences between the American system and the French system. So my first question is, who is meant to be putting the financing together, in a movie?
the financing for our movies, it varies, but we do have a housekeeping deal with 20th Century Fox, and that is our home. And when we actually we do a movie with Fox, then they finance it sometimes with a foreign financier. Every project is different. Every project varies. But right now, I'm talking to Sami Adida. I'm talking to Sami about, and so I've worked. This will be my third movie with Sami, hopefully. He financed True Romance, and he financed Domino, and he's looking to finance Potsdamer. Yeah, and so it's horses for courses. It depends on the project. The last movie I just did with Fox was fully financed by Fox, which is Unstoppable. Man on Fire was part financed by Arne Milchan's company, 50% and 50% by Fox. But it's hard getting your financing until you've got a distribution deal. When Fox are out, that's always my goal, that they distribute and they completely 100% finance or 50%. But with Sami's going to do it with Lionsgate.
So, in the US you have executive producer and producer. So can you tell us the difference between an executive producer and producer?
A producer is, if I quote names, it might help cut to it a little faster. Jerry Bruckheimer is what I call a producer. A producer is normally somebody who actually comes to you with the project and he owns the project. Yeah, executive producer is there as an executive on balancing finance and creative, and so I don't think it's any different from America and France. I think the titles remain the same, don't they?
Well, in France, executive producer is more like a line producer. Yeah, and the producer, what you would call the producer, is actually someone that is in charge of putting the financing together, developing the project, of course owning the rights and stuff like that. And there is, in France there is not the dimension of the producer who's really responsible for the end result of the movie. Maybe a little bit more like in the US.
George, for instance, on this last movie I did, I think there were 8 executive producers.
Yeah, I saw that. So the executive producers are just people that needs to fill their days and they don't know exactly what to do, so they come to the set.
No, I use them in different ways, but honestly, I think if you're talking about the world generally between France and America, it's a little different because I'm a director which has a reputation. I've got a big track record, so I get my meetings or my discussions out of the way in the room beforehand, and very rarely do I get somebody standing on the set next to me. Only back in the early days, for instance, Jerry Bruckheimer was there from 7 a.m. in the morning on Top Gun to 11 at night, but the subsequent 5 movies I did with Jerry, he'd come maybe once a week or rarely, because it's a shorthand between the two of us, and it's a telephone call, and it's a terrible word in this business. There's a trust, but with people I've worked with a long time, that trust is a good word.
And what are the agents meant to be doing?
The agents?
Yes, what are they meant to be doing?
The agents, well, I'm with
one of the biggest, most powerful agencies in the world, CAA, and what the agents are meant to be doing is meant to be finding me my next project. But you know what? it rarely happens that way. You know, my projects come through relationships, come through me looking at the world around me, and I don't know how many movies I've done, how many have come directly through an agent's contact, but once I get a project that they want to do, they help me get it financed, they help me get it cast, and a lot of the cast, for instance, comes out of my agency, comes out of CAA, so they help me close deals, yeah. So that's, and Richard Lovett, who's been my agent now for 20 plus years, yeah. He's head of CAA now, and I have, you know, inside the agency two other agents, yeah. But they all have a particular role in closing on particular things for me.
So when did you create the company?
Scot-free. Honestly, I'll give you a little bit. I'll go backwards. I'll go back, and I've actually had to pull up the dates here. It starts in 1973. 1973 was not Scot-free. Was RSA. Ridley formed RSA on his own in 1973, and I was still at art school. I was still at the Royal College of Art, and then he said, you know, you should come and join me and do some commercials and, you know, pay Dad back the money that you owe him, because after 8 years in art school as a painter, I owed people some money. So we started in 1973 as RSA, which is a commercial production company, and the commercial production company then developed into a company that did rock videos, which were big in those days. The name Scot-free was formed because I did a movie as my diploma film with the Royal College of Art, an hour-long film, and I needed a production company as a name. I call it Scot-free because Scot-free in English means, Scot-free means free as a bird. Yeah, so it means
we are free creatively. We are free. We have no inhibitions. We are free, free, free. And so that's why we call it Scot-free. And our logo is a little bird, which identifies the company Scot-free.
Yeah, and that's how the name was formed. But the company itself did not come into being until the early 80s. Yeah, and when Ridley did The Duelists, I then did The Hunger. Ridley did Alien. They were all affiliated or were Scot-free productions.
You know, I'm interested to understand what are the goals or the strategy of Scot-free right now. I mean, you know, in the past 5 years, I would say, because it looks that there has been an acceleration in terms of your activity.
The goals of Scot-free are selfishly to continue for Ridley and I to make our own movies, but more so is to get other movies made for other people. We want to become become producers in a production company which makes a variety of different products. So, you know, last year we did 6 different movies, 2 big movies, or 3 big movies, one by Ridley, one by me, 18, and then we did actually like 7 movies, and we did 4 other small, more indie type movies, and I love the mix and match of all those different types of movies, and we have a very, very successful TV department, and we have 2 shows on TV now in series, and we just had 6 seasons with Numbers, and The Good Wife is running at the moment, and to huge critical and monetary acclaim. Yeah, so and we got 2 more shows starting in the spring. So, and we have a production company here at RSA, which is our commercial production company, which we have a great breeding ground for great directors here.
So how many people are working at Scot-free at the moment? Because it looks like, you know, you are dealing with many, many different projects, you know, TV series, you know, your films, you know, your young directors' movies. So how does it look like a company like yours compared to, you know, to what we would have here, you know, for our little production companies?
George, it looks busy. It looks full. It looks full and it looks busy. And I would be remiss to say, I can tell you exactly how many people we got on permanent staff here, but we have a permanent staff in the TV department, and this TV department is cranking. It's working 24/7, and in the movie department too. And I'd be remiss to give you actual numbers, but obviously as a movie comes in, or as a project comes in, people come in and they work as executive producers, and they, you know, all producers, and then we restaff according to how much we've got going on. I think we've got 20 plus full-time employees over at Scot-free.
Okay, well that's a fairly big operation for France. You know,
20 plus right now. I think there must be almost double that in there because we're so busy.
Okay, so now, in terms of your project, I've listed 25 projects in development.
Uh-huh.
Does it make sense to you, 25 projects?
You know, it's always been hard, it's always been tough to get movies made, and now is particularly tough, but I've got 11 out of the 25, and all those projects are projects I've been attached to for a long time, projects I've got a passion about, whether I can quote things like The Warriors, or Hell's Angels, or Potsdamer, or Tom Mix and Pancho Villa. They're not just things that we throw into the pot and say, let's develop. You know, times change, and people don't, and right now it's not a good time for Tom Mix and Pancho Villa, you know, because it's a huge epic movie. But there will be a time, and I will make that movie. Warriors is not a time because people are scared of the violence, you know, well, not people, but the studios.
What about being a producer on your movie? So how does that work? When do you decide, or how is it decided that you become a producer of the movie?
George is part of my contract, and it just gives you that little bit more control as a producer than just as a creative force, as a director. So within my contract on every movie, it says I have a producer credit and I'm a director credit, yeah, and that gives me control with the studios, gives me control with the financing, gives me control in terms of creative, which is it gives me, you know, in terms of choice of actor, everything. It just gives you that not a little bit more, a lot more power. And not power to shove it down people's throats, but power just to be able to protect myself creatively and financially.